Welcome, everybody, to Write Better Together. I'm Jon Meyers. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, Jon Meyers. And hey, look, everybody, it's Bob Saenz.
Oh, my gosh. What the? Okay, where Emily just disappears every time. Now, last time you said she was in your basement, but she's now had her baby since we've recorded.
Yeah, so they're in the attic. They're up in the attic now. I can hear them shuffling around up there.
Great. What are we talking about today, Bob Saenz?
Well, we have quite the list.
Oh,
We're going to talk about how we got out of our bubble this week.
yes.
We're going to do a viewer response because you are good at those.
Well, they are good. The viewers are good at those.
We have quite the guest in the lovely Clay Baggett.
Ah, he is lovely.
We're going to do Do You Know Why with Emily.
Hey, Jon Meyers with Emily.
Yes, Hey, Jon Meyers with Emily. And then we're going to do our game, which I'm going to try my best to lose.
The final act.
Yep.
You have a prize chosen especially for you.
Oh, boy. Last time it was a banana I couldn't eat, and the time before it was a paper plate with a dinosaur on it.
Speaking of that, you asked me why Stephanie can't eat bananas, so I asked her just to follow up, just so we can't have any loose ends. She took one of those tests of the doctors of foods that you can't, that you're allergic. I don't know if it's a food allergy test or what, and bananas was on the list, so she had to give up bananas. I won't eat a banana in public. Did you know that?
I don't eat. That's just too much information for me.
Because okay. I won't eat a banana. I'll eat it in privacy of my own home, but not in public because people. You look like a monkey when you eat a banana in public. I don't want to look like a monkey.
Okay.
How you get out of your bubble?
Tomorrow night.
Oh.
Okay. I got out of it a little bit this week, but not a lot, because I was just back from all those trips and I kind of took it easy. But tomorrow night I'm getting out of my bubble. I'm going to the Ryman Theater to see Paul Simon on his final tour. And I will have a report about it next week. When we get together.
Has he announced it's the final?
He has announced this is it. He is retiring after this tour. And he is going to go out really well in that he's playing smaller venues and having more fun, more intimate venues. That's why I'm seeing him instead of at Bridgestone, which you could easily sell out. He's doing 3 nights at the Ryman. He did Sunday night. He's doing tonight, and he's doing tomorrow night. And I'm seeing the last Nashville show tomorrow night.
And he's going to call you up on stage to join him.
No, he's not going to call me up on stage. He isn't even going to look at me. He's not going to notice me. And I don't know him.
What's your first Paul Simon memory?
I think it was The Boxer, I think was. I know I heard others, Homeward Bound and a bunch of other songs first, but the one that really got me was The Boxer because not only was it musically was it incredible, but the words are just stunningly great. And I became a Paul Simon fan and realized very early that Garfunkel was easily ejected from the picture.
We both worked in radio stations in our youth. And me when I was 14 and 15 years old, believe it or not. And so that's my first Paul Simon memory is we didn't have that many records at this FM station. I mean, it was you can't see how big my arms are wide, but we probably only had 300 records, and Simon and Garfunkel was like the most well-worn of the ones at this little radio station.
Well, when I was on the air, I played country music and then rock and roll, and I don't think I played any Paul Simon by that time, unless it was me and Julio down by the schoolyard.
Oh, that was after. How is that possible? Wait, ask me how I got out of my bubble.
How did you get out of your bubble this week, Jon Meyers?
Well, I went to a webinar with my hero, Michael Jamin, beside my other hero, besides you, of course, celebrity screenwriter with the green eyes, Bob Saenz. And, and it was, this is how much of a Jamin head I am. It wasn't even about a topic that I need to know about that much. It was about how a TV writer room works. I already learned how in film school, I already learned how a TV writer room, but people don't realize all the different layers, and you have to work your way up to the top. And
Yep.
so it was really about that. And Kevin Lewandowski is one of his lower level people. He's at script supervisor level, and he's teaching a course. And so it was really to introduce him. And so I already knew all of that. The reason that I knew all that was I did a writer's room with Kirker Butler. Kirker Butler used to write on the on Family Guy and the Cleveland Show. Now, or I don't know about season 5, but on Only Murders in the Building, he moved his way up. And at film school, we broke a Family Guy up on the whiteboard, and there were such crazy. The ideas that didn't get used were so crazy and so obscene that that they don't belong on this show.
So even though sometimes you say this is a very family friendly show, you're thinking obscene thing.
As we talk in a future segment with Clay Baggett, I don't think that much on the past, and that's why I try not to think about the past.
Oh, what's your viewer response?
It is from Janice Birch, who responded to episode 51, in which our call to action on episode 51 was celebrate something you're good at. Oh, that's a good one. Janice wrote, I especially appreciated this episode as I've always been interested in audiobooks. So that was our one with Emily Norman. That was the episode where we had too many Emilys. I read to my children during their entire childhood and always used different voices for the characters. My greatest compliment from one of my kids was after I had read Harry Potter books to them, and then we went and saw the movie, I was told that they liked my voices better than the voices in the movie. It's not every day a person can say that they bested Dame Maggie Smith. My husband even created a small studio for me in our walk-in closet so I could begin creating my own recordings of my favorite books to have for my future grandchildren. Isn't that wonderful?
I like that.
It's lovely.
It's lovely, and it was nice of her to write such an opus to you.
I was inspired by her inspiring.
Yeah, now you can go take your microphone in a closet.
All right.
Would you like to know about our guest?
I sure would.
Clay Baggett is the pastor of Three Oaks Church in Gallatin, Tennessee. He is a dynamic speaker, a dynamic human being, and an all-around lovely person. He's got a wife and 3 daughters and 5 grandchildren. He's got a couple of podcasts that he does. He's an ex-hair metal band rocker, and I've heard his band, and they were quite loud. And really not that bad. It was a lot of prog rock, which I kind of like. It was good. He worked for NASA for a while, doing their promotional videos, and had a production company that did local videos in Florida before he came back up here to become a youth pastor at his father's church. He got called to do that. He met his lovely wife, Twana, and his life changed. He became what his father was, which was a wonderful and just life-affirming pastor. And I can't be happier than to call him my very close personal friend.
He is wonderful. During your introduction, it must have been time for a plug because your book fell off the shelf while you were getting ready to introduce Clay.
Oh, okay.
There you go. All right, let's watch this interview.
Okay.
And we're back. I'm still Jon Meyers from Right Better Together. It's still Bob Saenz. Who's this other guy, Bob?
This other guy is my good friend and my pastor and a media guy and a rock musician and an extraordinarily wonderful human being named Clay Baggett. who
I know.
are
I'm
on.
pretending like I don't know him. I've met him a couple times, and I
I
agree
like
that
you.
he is wonderful.
Listen, you're the
And
one that requested he be on the show. I said
correct.
no,
So
please, no.
so
Careful, guys. Careful.
that's where that's how I'm going to set the table to start this. So I wanted Bob's first episode where he's acting as co-host, guest host, to have Pastor Clay on. Can I call you Clay or Pastor Baggett? What do I call
Clay.
you? All right.
Clay. Pastor's a title. We don't need that
Call him
here.
Clay.
I don't like titles
Yeah.
either. I
I
don't
call him
even like
you.
I don't even like Mister. Like I don't like titles at all. And so I wanted Clay to be on, and then for Bob's first episode, and then the topic is managing expectations, which I'm going to launch to in a second. But Bob's with me for another 5 weeks, and I just know that I would need your expertise to help us navigate this dynamic of Jon Meyers and Bob Saenz in the same room. And so
Scary.
I'm setting the table for this episode. You're setting the table for the next 5 episodes of managing my expectations for Bob. So here we go.
Your biggest mistake is having any expectations for me.
Well,
there are no guarantees of anything I won't do.
Funny that you say that, because that's where I'm starting with this. I had read, I don't know, 25 years ago, back when I guess Boundaries is 30 years old, but I went down this path where I read Boundaries, and I read all like the ancillary spin-off books and all of those. And then I'm going to bring up a quote in a second, but basically the Boundaries was about managing expectations and what expectations that you should have. But some of the books were like, have no expectations whatsoever. and I think Bob's going to represent that. What I don't like about that is then you can't even like look forward to a vacation or something, right? There needs to be some positive expectations. And but the argument is, if you have no expectations whatsoever, then you can't ever be disappointed. And look what I have in honor of you, Clay. It's butterscotch pudding. Yeah, that's what you said. And so your expectation. What? Hold on, just go down this journey with me. Go down the river. Go down this path. At Thanksgiving, you're like, oh no, I do not want any butterscotch pie. You had this expectation that it would be gross and disgusting because you made that face right there.
Yep.
I saw you finish the piece and compliment the butterscotch pie.
I did. It is true.
So,
however, there are some extenuating circumstances to that. But anyway.
So metaphorically, this butterscotch pudding,
disgusting looking. I'm just telling you,
will represent your expectation was defeated by that pie. And so expectation doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, and you don't necessarily have to get rid of all of them. Then I'm going to get to a question though here eventually. And then there are other people on the other end of the spectrum where Bob will be like, he'll downplay the expectation, right? Like not to stay neutral on it and not have an expectation. He's got an empty cup. He's not a cup.
I have a
half full, cup half empty.
Full.
Mine's full. Bob's has an empty cup. And so let me read you this quote, and then I will shut up. It's from Francis Chan. You know Francis Chan, I'm sure.
I do.
Have you met Francis Chan?
I have not met him. I know of him.
All right. So he says, when we take control and expect things to go as we plan, we deny God the chance to work. Letting go of our expectations allowed God to show us what he can do. And so
I like that quote because I firmly believe that.
Awesome.
I firmly believe that.
So
you know, a lot of times when you're in prayer and you're praying for things or praying that things will happen, you know, and they don't, but then something else happens that kind of helps what you were trying to do. Or, I mean, God has his own plans and you just got to go with those. I mean, you really do.
So that's where I'm going with that. there's still an expectation, but it's not your expectations. It's God's expectation to finish what you start. And it's God's plan, not your plan. What speak on that for a while in general terms, and then Bob will ask a follow-up question, I'm sure.
I think when we talk about expectations, obviously as Christians, my standpoint would always be you can't have a correct expectation without having a foundation of faith of some sort to the extent of what meets my expectation. I think the challenge that I see in people's lives, and in mine too, is the idea that we don't raise our expectations to the level that they should be. And that's because we set those expectations based on the prism that we see through, right? Our experiences, all those things. You guys are writers, so you know exactly. You're always writing through a prism of some sort. I think we manage our expectations first and foremost by saying, just as Bob was saying, as Francis Chan's quote went, is you can't accurately set an expectation without understanding whose responsibility is to fulfill that expectation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. 100%.
I think that it's like you said, that our expectations have a tendency to be pretty myopic.
Yeah.
They have a tendency to be in this little box where God's interpretation is, infinity, and which I think is a much better case.
Yeah, and I think we run into the idea of expectations. I think a lot of people are. Let's say let's talk about depression in this. I know that that's a common conversation throughout our culture. I truly believe that in a lot of cases, not all of them. I'm not a medical doctor. Don't pretend to one. I don't play one on TV. One of you may have done that in your past, but anyway, for me, what I realize is that if I don't have some expectation, some guidance, some direction, and that's ultimately what expectation is, it's direction. If I don't have it, then I'm just out spinning, and we spin out of control and we have no direction. The problem, or the key, is what directs that. It's like a GPS. I mean, we've heard this illustration many times. It's like a GPS. It does you no good if you don't input the address that you're trying to get to. And I think that's what we do in life. And that's why people get stagnant. They get depressed, not clinically depressed, but just down, whatever you want to call that these days. We get into that situation because we have no expectation. Now, I will say this, because Bob's presentation of expectation, your expression of that, they're really the same thing in my eyes, because what we're basically saying is, I don't want to build my expectation. Your expectation of me should not be based upon something that's not accurate, because you're going to have thoughts and ideas of me that may not be accurate. So I'm going to let you down. I'm only human. I'm going to say something to offend somebody before this session's over. That's just how it is, right?
I will.
We got a professional offender over there. But the truth is for me to understand that if I have a basis of faith, a moral foundation of some sort to guide what my expectations should be, I think it brings joy.
When you talk about taking offense, it's even permeated our language in that, just like to label this episode, when I had to decide it's going to be managing expectations, right? That's a nice lukewarm term, managing it, not don't, like it could be don't have any expectations, exclamation point, exclamation, but that would be too bold and it might offend someone. Or here's what you should do with your expectation. Like the language we use on something simple like a YouTube clip, 2 words, we temper those words to not offend.
Yeah. Well, everybody's afraid to communicate. And what happens is now we don't have clarity. And see, that's the common denominator in all this, is that the problem when there's not clarity, what happens? What fills the gap? Assumption. So we assume things. We assume that because I want this in my life, I have this dream, I have this prayer in my life. We assume that that's God's plan for our life. The problem is we're not God. And God knows what's better for us than we do, obviously, because I don't know about you guys. I've proven that over and over that I do not know what's best for my life. He does. Well, and my wife, she tells me all the time she knows what's best for me.
Well,
But isn't that the truth, though? Is like, isn't it the work of clarity? I mean, you guys are writers, so you know this specifically, is that if you don't do the work of clarity, you don't get the correct expectation of what the goal is.
How much of that is so I'm a person, I don't know this about Bob, and I certainly don't know it about you, Clay, so you both can answer this one. I rarely look back. I learn my lesson and look forward. And like when you say enter the thing in your GPS, I don't put the last 10 places I went into the GPS. I put the next place I'm going into the GPS. And so I don't need to look back. I've already learned that lesson, so now it's part of me.
Right.
But there are
Right.
people who are watching this and who are listening to this who they will spend 3 hours of today looking at some past mistake or some past victory and make the next decision based on that. I don't want everyone other people, and so everyone's different, and so not everyone can cope or deal or manage things the way someone else does. But
Sure.
what do you guys think about looking backwards?
I think I did it when I was younger more than I should have, and then looking around and just, I guess, aging, it made me realize that we're here such a short time. Why am I looking at things I have no control over? You know, you learn from your life. You should learn from your life and make changes based on what you learn. But dwelling on the past is incredibly wasted time, as far as I'm concerned. I know people, and I'm going to go to the other people. I know people who still think that high school was the greatest time of their life, and they're
Right.
my age. I mean, and I think it's time to grow up. You know.
I think too, and coming off of what Bob said, this may come from a different aspect of it. When we talk about looking back, even in the book of Isaiah, the prophet is saying, do away with yesterday. Don't dwell on yesterday. The difference is he doesn't say forget yesterday.
No.
It's don't dwell on yesterday, the good nor the bad. And I think too many times we get hung up on yesterday, that distorts your expectation of what tomorrow can look like. But back to the GPS illustration, that idea, we're talking about only putting in the forward moving directions. The nice thing about the GPS, at least mine, is that all those other destinations that I went to in the past, when I need to call them up, I can.
Yes.
And from that aspect, I would say this: I can always look back and learn and be reminded, being reminded of, God, don't do that again. That was stupid. That hurt really bad. Don't do that again. But we can't get stuck in it, because when we do, we end up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Is we create defeat where we could have had victory. We never had a chance to win because we never gave the Creator, we never gave God control of what our expectations should be.
There are people who will and not just with writing, just in life. But let's say they're going to submit a script to a contest, or they're going to submit something to their agent, that when they hit submit, or a job application, let's say they're not a writer, when they hit submit, they'll be like, this isn't going to go anywhere. They're not going to like this. As they're hitting the button, the submit button,
Right.
it takes the same amount of energy to go, hey, maybe, I think my agent's really going to love this. But they'll confess the negativity out. I liked what you, because your Isaiah scripture was perfect for me to go to this next area. 90% of the people watching this, if they haven't turned it off already, are not Christians. And so, but that principle is still true.
Right.
And so Emily and I, when we started this, we made a decision that when the scriptures come up, that's who we are. So we're not going to ignore them, and we're not going to hide that under a barrel. But it's still true for non-believers as well. Don't dwell on the thing, right? So there's still these practical applications. There's still these principles that apply no matter who you are.
Yeah. Some things just work. And, and I would say this, everybody's on a journey. And that journey of expectation is one where we're experiencing this moment in our life. We're experiencing this moment. Everything's a step, hopefully a step forward. Sometimes, I spend a lot of time meandering sometimes, and I did that with my faith, for a lot of years, discovering. I ask questions all the time. I am a question asker. And the one truth that I always come to is that a lot of the cultural principles that we experience in our world come from some particular sources that, we know that what Isaiah taught in that's a principle that's just universal. It just is the truth. And anyway, I just think it's really a challenge for all of us because we don't do the work of understanding what our expectations should be. We get stuck because we failed in the past. And I don't know about you guys. I've had one or two failures in my life. Yeah. And I think everybody has to realize that, number one of the ills, one of the banes of our society is social media. As much as a great tool as it can be, all those things. The problem is everybody's comparing everybody to things that are impossible, that aren't real. And so now their expectations are skewed because they're getting their clarity from a lie. Right?
Well, and the lies come from the different things in the social media. Nobody looks the way they really look on social media, mostly because you have all these filters and you have all these things.
I've got so many filters on right now, guys. You have no idea.
No, I don't. But you just, it's true. You can't believe a lot of things that you see. You can't believe a lot of things that you hear. So yeah, I'm not I do use social media, but I use it in a very targeted and specific way.
Yeah.
But I'm not, the latest TikTok thing now for kids is blowing up your Chromebook. And now kids are getting hurt because they're exploding their Chromebooks. They're being shown how to do things that'll make your Chromebook explode.
So listen to this, Bob. Actually, you do know a current trend. That's that last week you didn't know about the 100 men versus the gorilla trend, but that is a thing because the school gives you free Chromebooks, and so blow up your Chromebooks a thing. But how is that? That's just a 2025 version of going and spray painting graffiti. Cuss word graffiti on the side of a train as down at the train station,
or eating Tide Pods.
Yeah, it's just today's version of that.
But when we were kids, yeah, you could get hurt, but the things that we did weren't harmful. They weren't set out to harm people.
Yeah, I think it wasn't the mass content that we see today. And that's what's so alarming.
It doesn't proliferate as fast today. I mean, back then as it does today. But there were still people who put a penny on the railroad tracks and lost a hand. There were, when I was a kid.
I don't know any, John. I don't.
I do.
Don't know one.
I do, and so you just didn't hear about it, and it didn't catch the trend didn't catch its fire as much. But there were dangerous trends when everyone was when.
Yeah, but it didn't spread like wildfire like it does now.
That's right.
I mean, there are Chromebooks blowing up all over the country as we speak.
True,
and it's not a good thing. It's an incredibly bad thing.
There were still hoodlums that destroyed property, that destroyed your Camaro when you were in high school. It just didn't proliferate.
Wait a minute. I can promise you I didn't have a Camaro in high school. I can promise you that.
Whatever the thing is, whatever the current technology is, people have used it for bad. Yeah. Somehow I'm gonna challenge Clay to segue this into his dad and the apostle. And
well, I was going to talk about his dad too, because Clay's in the position he's in today because of his dad.
Clay, put yourself in. First, tell everybody who your dad was, and then why I mentioned the apostle. But what years were you're gonna have to do math? Oh, what years were your dad?
I need to make a trip. Hold on.
What years was your dad a teenager?
Oh my! He was born in the 30s, so I would say the 50s and 60s. Yeah.
So that my parents were about that same time. So pretend you're your dad, and imagine the 1954 prank of what the blowing up. There was vandalism.
Sure.
So tell us imagine what that would be, and then how your dad would have responded to it, and then how you would respond to it, and then how someone would respond to it today. There you go.
Well, I think if I were to put myself in that situation, in those days too, the climate was pretty charged at that time too. I'm just trying to think of how he would react. Because my dad didn't come to faith until he was an adult.
Me either. I think I told you that. 31.
Yeah, and he came from a sharecropper family. They were true sharecroppers, and great integrity, just poor, just literally dirt poor, and hard workers. So I will tell you this, that my dad typically in those situations, I think from who he was in that time, I think he would have been quiet. I think he would have reacted in a way of let me just step back away from this because we already have so little. I don't need to mess this up. If that's answering your question correctly.
Yeah, and here's so that reminded me. Here's a perfect example. So when I was, I don't know, 4th grade, 5th grade, you've seen those big long elementary schools that are just all window, right? And because they were all in a straight line and they were all window. Some high school boys came and we had to go to a different elementary school for 2 weeks or something because some high school boys came over the weekend and broke every one of those windows. And it was 3 boys, and I don't know how 30 windows, every one of them all the way around. That's teenage vandalism and back in that day. But I don't know, that's the equivalent of blowing up the Chromebook to whatever that time was. So your dad would have been quiet.
I think he would have been. I think that he would have been more contemplative of what are the outcomes that might happen, what kind of penalty is going to be paid, because at that point, there's 2 choices. Either I have nothing to lose, so who cares, or the few things that I do have, are in danger of being gone. So I think he would have probably leaned into that. Now, I will tell you this. He was a different person. When he came to faith, he became one. He's just bold, like crazy bold. And to the point that
tell the story of the station wagon tale or the truck tale.
Oh, okay. All right. So I remember as a kid, he was planting churches in the deep South. And my gosh, I had to have been 2 or 3. I mean, I was incredibly young, old enough to remember. But he would go on the streets and preach in this town, like he'd just street preacher, you know. And now he didn't stand on a box telling everybody they're going to hell. What he would do was on the weekends in small towns in America, you know what happened? Everybody gathers in the same spots. You know, it was Coleman's Barbecue in Ripley, Mississippi. Coleman's Barbecue. And my dad would take the station wagon and he would wind it between all those people and get underneath the sign. Then he would drop the tailgate of that car and he would get up and just preach. And he would speak his truth. He would speak the gospel, and they hated him. It was awful. And I mean, they would throw beer bottles. All these things would be happening, right? Just crazy stuff. So then one night, Dad told all of us kids, he said, look, he goes, you are coming with me tonight. Well, we're fired up. We're excited. We're going to Coleman's Barbecue, right? And so, you know, the whole 2-minute drive over there, because it's a small town. And anyway, so he backs in, does all the things, drops the tailgate, and puts all of us on the hood, not on the hood, on the top of the car behind him. So he stood on the tailgate, we're behind him, and he would preach. And we're sitting there looking at all these people. And, you know, years down the road, I thought, wow, that was a great experience. That was really cool. Until I realized that my dad was using us children as his human shield, because nobody would throw the bottles at the kids. So, true story. My older brother could probably even tell that even better than me.
I doubt that. Well, I don't know your older brother, so maybe that is true. So while we're at this point of talking about your dad, tell them the story about the apostle.
Oh, yeah, my dad, Paul Baggett, Pastor Paul Baggett, was legendary in the faith world. And very well known. He liked to go to places nobody else would go. That's what he did.
And he was a tent preacher.
And yes, he was a tent revivalist, is what we would call that in that time frame. And he was amazing. So at one point, Johnny Cash, who was a friend of my father, and Waylon Jennings had connected my dad with Robert Duvall. Robert Duvall was wanting to do a movie that didn't demonize and villainize preachers and pastors for once. And he did a good job. It was a bit of a wild movie, but still he did a good job with that. So he came in and followed Dad for 6 months or so, and would go to meetings with Dad, tent revivals with Dad, and studied my father. And Dad's actually in the movie, which is a fascinating thing in and of itself. But anyway, I remember so many things from that time frame, but what I remember most is the fact that he became an outcast inside his own group of denominational people because of he was working with Robert Duvall, and which is absolutely ridiculous. It's one of the problems that we have in the church, that we don't feel like, well, we can't work with people that don't believe like we do. No, I think the goal should be is that, once again, in managing expectations, is realizing that if we believe what we say, if we believe that the hope that we have inside of us, we need to use every avenue that we can to help people hear our story. And that's what happened in that movie. And so there are the big key moments in that movie were events that were taken out of my father's life. And it's pretty fascinating. But so is The Apostle with Robert Duvall, and based.
An Academy Award nominated movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an exceptionally good movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I was trying to remember if I was saved when I saw it, and not because I didn't mean that movie got me saved, but I think when I saw it, I don't think I was saved yet. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was. I remember how great it was. So before you give the call to action, I want you to take this conversation. I don't want you to dwell on looking back on it
Before
for
he
too
does
long.
the call to action, I just wanted to talk a little more about his dad and how special he was. Clay has told me some amazing things about him, and I've looked some things up, and I've watched some. There are some videos out there of Clay's dad that are pretty amazing, and then you watch him in the Apostle, and the story of him shooting his scene is a little long, but it's really funny. How he didn't want to shoot the movie the way he usually shoot movies, and so Clay and I have talked extensively about. He's been asked a lot of times to write a book about his dad's life, and I think we may do it together.
I'd like that. And the stories are gold. I mean, the stories are just, you can't make it up. And they're stories that resonate with people. So I think it's great. I love that.
So that
Mhm.
kind of dovetails with where I was going to go before we get to the call to action. Was you went from being the human shield as the child, and then you is rebel the right word? um, uh, for lack of a better word, you can put a better word in there, and
I think that's the right word, don't you?
okay. Well, so you went in a different direction than your father, and then I am not. I'm the same way. I went in a different direction than my father in a different way where uh, I just didn't want to be like him,
Yeah.
and and Bob was the same way. Didn't have anything to do with faith because I didn't, like I said, I didn't ha- this I didn't get saved until I was 31, and but I just didn't want to be like him. Anyway, so how did
Well, I think
teenage
talk to
Clay
him about his journey.
how did teenage Clay let me finish. How did teenage Clay take that experience and uh incorporate that into some pivot point where you flipped into be who you are? You went from rebelling to who you are today. What was
Yeah.
that pivot point, and how did that relationship with your father inform that pivot point?
My father never gave up on me. Never. He loved me. I mean, I was a hippie child, out playing music, doing all the things. As soon as I could, I was
Out
going.
playing music is a little understatement. You were in a hair band.
Yeah, well, and I had a lot more hair then. But it was a journey, and as Bob was saying, it is the journey. Everybody has these moments of decision. And as I was finding my way, I never didn't believe in God. I never went so far as to be an atheist or anything like that. I just didn't like church people, and I felt for the most part they were mean and just not good people. That's not, and I say that for a reason. So when I was old enough to leave, I left, and I began to wander on my own, just trying to figure things out. I was still a good person. I still had, moral values and all those things. I just found myself journeying, and it's amazing to me is that when you try to eliminate your faith, the path that it takes you down is rarely good. And found myself in some really difficult places. My father and my mother, they never stopped praying for me. They never stopped. I was never alienated. and here my dad is a traditional Pentecostal preacher, as traditional as they come. And he's got this long-haired heathen kid, and
Singing in front of a rock band.
right, fronting a rock band and doing all these things, and just the complete opposite of what he had hoped, what his expectation for my life was. But I wanted to find mine. So fast forward to, I always tell people, until I found myself in a place that I never thought I would be, and in a situation that I could not fathom that I was in. And it was that moment, I remember looking up, and I won't go into the story, but I remember looking up and saying, God, I don't understand how I ended up here. And I remember this, it wasn't an audible voice, it wasn't this, but it was this comforting piece of a statement inside my heart that just sat. And it was, come home. I never left. And that was when the pivot point happened for me. And I discovered that my problem wasn't the church. My problem was people. And my faulty expectation was that I expected people to shelf all their issues, all their hurts, all their things, and shelve those things, because Christians are just good people. They're just always nice and loving people, and they nothing negative ever comes out of their mouths. They never say bad things. Just hang out with Bob for a minute, and you'll find that's how untrue that is. And
well,
sorry, Bob.
I'm also no, but it was also the reason that Thor Ramsey and Stephen Baldwin and I did Church People.
Right. Which spoke to me. I mean, that was not only was it funny, it was a very accurate realization. And that's what it was for me, is I had that moment, and it was that chrysalis moment where I recognized I was defining my expectations of who God was based upon broken people who God was trying to heal. So that was my entry point back into the church, which is a whole nother story. But I always say, people that don't know, I'm a pastor now and have been for many years. But I am probably the most reluctant pastor anybody will ever meet. I never wanted to be a pastor, never had a desire. People were mean. I didn't want to deal with, I had enough problems in my own life. I didn't want to deal with everybody else's problems. And, but yet, here's where I ended up. And I've been blessed. Me and Bob talk about this. I've been very blessed to do a lot of fun, great things in my life. But this has been 100% the most meaningful. And it started with the realization of faulty expectations that I had imposed because I thought I had it figured out. But yet that's when I realized, God's just got a better ending in mind for me than even I did.
Do you think part of the reason, so your dad was anchored in truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he never gave up on you. But do you think part of that is because he came to faith late in life? And so he remembers his, at that time, he was remembering him when he didn't have any.
I'm absolutely certain of that. But I also, one of the things about my father was, and I tell people, one of the unique attributes he had was this ability to love. He had this reservoir of love and grace that it allowed him to minister and to love drug addicts and people that were at the lowest level of their lives. And listen, we've seen some ugly things in our lives, and it doesn't get uglier than that. To be able to sit in a room with that person and identify, but yet lead Chet Atkins to the Lord, to have, a friendship with Johnny Cash and all the different things that, and I could drop names, but nobody likes that. But, that was that ability, that reservoir of love. I was his son. And he knew that God had given him a promise. I mean, this is his words, not mine. That God had given him a promise. So he just refused. He's just like a pit bull. Just when he was on it, and he wouldn't stop. and he never stopped loving me. And I think you're right. I think it was probably partially because of where he came from, but it was also because he had a greater hope for my life than even I understood. He saw something in me that I didn't see.
And I imagine pre-faith, he was still a loving man.
Sure. I
And
can't
so-
imagine him not.
Yeah. And so there are pre-faith people watching this right now who
Yeah.
who are wonderful, loving people, and we love them.
Listen, faith done right only makes those wonderful attributes better.
Yeah,
That's the key is faith done right.
You should be a pastor or something. That was a perfect
I'll
way to
think
say
about
that.
it. Bob's been talking to me about it. We're exploring the
I
possibility.
got it. We got it. We're figuring it out.
That was great. So call to action, is that your call to action for people to embody that?
I think it is, and I think I think that should always be our goal, is to realize first for ourselves that the key to managing expectation with others is, number one, communication. My father communicated what he saw in me. So
your father was an honest communicator with everybody he met, wasn't he?
Right.
He was
right.
It
Brutally
was never,
so.
It was never what you saw was what you got with your dad.
Right.
There was no he didn't sugarcoat anything, and he didn't it wasn't he
Right.
was firmly and always himself, and I think that served you well also.
Yeah, agreed. But I think it's that communication. He communicated that to me. So he was managing his expectation and communicating, this is what I see in you, right? So I think when I said call to action, I think make sure that instead of beating everybody up, instead of condemning everything in everybody's life and reminding them of what a failure they are, what would happen if we begin to communicate the goodness that we can see in them, the possibility, the potential, because God's expectation of people is far greater than what we could think. Now, the reverse side of that is doing the work of understanding of how to manage our own expectations. I had a very limiting thought process of myself. I remember when, a particular record, I won't even talk about the record labels, but a record label came up and wanted to sign me, but not the band. And, hindsight, you're like going, well, that was stupid. But however, that wasn't the path. And I'm thankful that wasn't the path that I ended up on for my career as a lifetime. But I remember it was my own insecurity and my lack of managing the expectation correctly that didn't give me the confidence to stand on my own. So they were my crutch. So I would just tell people, it's like, do the work. Do the work of uncovering the clarity of what your expectation should be. It's there, and you can find it. It's hard work. I won't even say it's hard work. It's a discovery process, but do the work, invest in yourself.
It's hard work, but it's simple, but it's hard.
Clarity is always the hardest thing to get. Vision, we can all have a dream. The clarity to get to the dream, to the purpose, to the fulfillment of that's where the work comes in.
Yep.
All right, viewers, listeners, take what Clay just said, embody that, and then let us know how it went over the next week, whenever this airs, over the next week or two, and put a comment underneath the YouTube video. When the video gets put on Facebook, that terrible, awful social media, you can leave your inspiring story as a comment. It can be used
for good.
You can leave
Clay has a podcast every Wednesday night that he has on Facebook. So,
you can put it as a comment underneath the episode, or on our webpage on writebettertogether.com/podcast. There you can put comments underneath the episode there and tell us how it went. Now, as you leave us, as we say goodbye, since Bob brought that up, tell us about that podcast.
Oh, well, I do that podcast. It's called Refuel. spend a little time. You can find it on Facebook. It's only on Facebook. I only do it there because I love the live intimacy that I get to have with the people. So come join me anytime, 6:30 p.m. Central, and join us from people all over the worworld.
And it's live.
And it's live. Warts and all, brother. It's all right there.
Cool. I watched the podcast where you had Bob on as a guest,
Mm-hmm.
and I told Bob this, so I watched that episode. But then I just went down the rabbit trail and I watched like 6 more episodes, right? And most of them were about healing, if I remember that correctly.
Oh yeah.
And so, but this is a different one. This is a live one.
Yeah.
Live one-on-one with your viewers. All right, awesome. Thank you, Pastor Clay. Oops.
I'm
Thank you, Clay.
Glad to be here, my friend, Pastor Jon.
No.
I'm thankful to be here with Pastor Jon and Pastor Bob.
Oh, please. Sorry, Lord.
All right. Thank you.
I never get tired of his philosophy. I never get tired of his take on things. I never get tired of the fact that he, deep down inside, is the same person all the time. That he doesn't try and be somebody else for whoever he's with. A great and terrific guy. It was a great interview, and I'm really happy he did it, and I'm happy he came.
Yeah, I agree. So I've met him a few times now, and had Thanksgiving dinner with him, as you'll see.
At my house.
At your house, where I discovered his love for butterscotch pudding. Oh. His love for butterscotch pie. I wanted him to be, which I already said during the conversation, I wanted him to be the first guest with you as the guest host to kind of set the tone for the next 5 weeks. And I think that he did a great job. And what you said about he's the same person at the dinner table as he is on public, he really is. And you're the same way, and I'm the same way. We're not any different. And
oh no, I it would be terrible if you don't want to ever be that way. Of course, there's people that have been in the past that I was when I was younger, of course, because I had an ego and I thought, oh boy, I'm a big time. I'm on a TV series and I'm doing all this stuff. And
that's a hard. And that it's a hard way to be the same in front of the camera as it is on the other side of the camera, but it's the best way to be.
Oh no, I finally learned a long time ago, and it took a lot of good actors that I learned from to relax and just be myself, even if I was playing a character.
And you want people to say that about, oh, he's the same as, he's the same in real life as he is. That's what you want people to say about you.
Yes.
That's authenticity. Cool.
Okay. Well, hey, Jon Meyers.
Yes, Emily has something to teach me.
Hey, Jon Meyers.
Yes.
It's me in the same outfit.
The same outfit as the last time you did a Hey Jon Meyers. Yeah. Who knows? I don't know that I'm going to use these in any order, or who knows?
I should just wear the same outfit all the time because that's what you do, and then nobody knows.
I do not wear the same clothes all the time. I have 7 of these shirts and 7 of these pants.
Yeah, like Adrian Monk.
Yes, exactly.
So, but like I could take an image from any video and nobody would know when, so if I always wore the same outfit, nobody would know when we recorded.
I want to know where the baby is while you're recording these.
Kicking me. Oh, I mean, in the nursery.
Behind you, kicking you? Why are you ignoring your baby?
So, I don't know how to frame this question, which is usually the case. Coral reefs.
True or false? Coral reefs. True.
Are super important to the marine ecosystem, but they take a long time to develop, and many of them are disappearing. So what might people do to restore the coral reefs.
Microplastics. No, is that wrong? Don't let the baby hear that answer.
Yeah, no. I think I should have framed the question differently, but
To restore them or to grow new ones. That's two different things. Because they are living things.
To encourage the growth of new ones.
Pep talk? Come on, guys. Community. Put existing ones closer to each other.
Oh. No.
Yes.
I realized here's how I should have framed the question, and this is going to actually answer the question. Why would people dump old subway cars into the coast?
Oh.
I think you
coral reefs can walk on over there and pretend they're in a strangers on a train movie. Strange coral reefers on the train.
I love that. Yeah, so that coral reefs will be encouraged to grow there. So basically, this is something I didn't know, but it's basically becomes an artificial reef because it's an area where it's completely flat. And so when you have something there that provides cover and also walls for things to grow on, it helps things to grow faster, and it supports a ton of habitat. So this says, this is from the Smithsonian Magazine, on the seafloor along the state's coast, this is of Georgia, expanses of sand and shells stretch for tens of miles offshore, a habitat that's not well suited for growth. But with these things, it says fish can take shelter and breed and develop among things like sunken ships, concrete rubble, bridge supporters, and other man-made objects. And so they were like, well, we have all these rail cars, so why not dump those in there? It seems like that would be super wasteful and toxic, but they've cleared all toxins from it to make it a safe environment for those communities of fish to develop and for plant life to grow.
So reason number 537, not to fall asleep on the subway train. It's right there.
Yeah, sure.
All right, go take care of your baby.
Okay.
But man, I sure miss her.
Well, I don't. She's right in the attic.
Oh yeah.
I'll take her a glass of Bosco later on.
Is that her ringing the bell up in the attic?
Yes.
Bosco.
Although we could see your hand doing it. Yes, it's her.
Well, what does that bell mean?
If you liked what you saw today, which you had to have because Clay Baggett is that good, then you should like this episode. You should subscribe to this wonderful podcast, and you should comment about anything about Jon that you'd like to comment.
Jon Meyers. Don't dilute my brand by cutting off my last name.
Anything about Jon Meyers that you would like to comment, especially about his brand.
Perfect. And especially about how much you love the following segment when Bob plays the final act. Ready? Today, you will be playing for this banana. No, I bet you think it's the same banana as last week, don't you?
It sure looks like it.
No, it literally says on the back of it, not the same banana. So it can't be the same banana.
Oh, yeah, because you couldn't just write that on there.
No, of course not. So people that don't know you always downplay, speaking about expectations, you downplay your roles, your cinematic roles, your television roles. You downplay it like, oh, I'm the elbow on this, or I'm the chewing gum on the foot of the dinosaur. And you always downplay it. And you were on Nash Bridges for 6 seasons or something. And you have a good work ethic.
That big.
Yeah, but they don't invite you back if you're bad.
Okay, I'll accept that.
And you're a professional, or they wouldn't invite you back. Like, even if you were good but you didn't show up on time, they wouldn't invite you back. So today I'm going to dispel the notion that where you have that you think that you're not a good actor. And today we're going to play Act Your Way Out of the Paper Bag.
Lights, camera, action.
Oh, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yes. Look so excited. It's a real paper bag. Inside this paper bag, I have 3 envelopes, just so you know. There's 3 real envelopes. And each one of them has a role that you played in the past. And and so you're going to be that character. I'm going to pull one of these out of here. You're going to be that
I
character.
don't understand if it's the one in the Darwin Awards. I was naked.
Okay, so it is not that one, but yes, I knew that, and I was going to bring that up afterwards. You were shower guy number 3 in the Darwin Awards.
Yes, I did, and I died in a very gruesome way.
I purposely did not put that one in there, and that's such a crazy movie. And now that we're going on this side tangent, Winona Ryder's in it. I love her, and but
I died. Finn Taylor directed that, and I love Finn Taylor.
Yeah,
and he called and said, "I need you to die in the shower for me."
People don't know, they're insurance inspectors, and they go and they go to investigate these crazy ways that people died, or these crazy insurance accidents, and they're all crazy, and I think they're all based on truth.
Yes, they are,
even though it's a fictional story.
And so I was I did my own stunts, which I was very proud of for that movie. And it looks like I'm naked, but I wasn't. And I died very convincingly in the shower. And when I went to the premiere, got a big laugh, which I was very, very happy about.
Yeah, so I purposely left that one out. So in this paper bag that you're going to act your way out of, there are 3 roles that you play in the past. What are you going to act out? Grab any book off the shelf from behind you. Any book. Just, I don't care which one. Just grab any book. Don't even put any thought into it. Oh my goodness. I know that book. Swirl the number. I'm going to pull a number from 1 to 10 out of here. And you're going to act out a paragraph on either this chapter or this page number. I don't care. Oh, I pulled out number 1. Look at that. Page 1 or chapter 1. Pick a paragraph, and that's what you'll be acting as a character.
You just wrote something to my wife. I'll do that.
Okay, as this character. And so now I got to pick a character out of this bag. So many moving parts to this game just to win.
I don't want the banana, so it doesn't matter.
Banana. Well, I can't eat it because I don't want to look like a monkey, and Stephanie can't eat it. All right, here we go. I'm pulling one out. They're not marked, so I don't know what one's in here. Officer Hoskins from Nash Bridges.
Oh, I ran and tackled people. I put people in handcuffs. I walked around behind Don Johnson with file folders, because it was a time when file folders still existed. I drank a lot of coffee at the coffee machine. I went out on calls with him, and he went into the danger, and he said, "You go around the back," and then I never saw me again. And it was a lot of that.
Our mutual friend Renee Gutteridge was on the show, and she talked about the reason I'm laughing because he said file folders. Whenever on a TV show, whenever the FBI or a cop shows up and someone's work, and they're like, "I have a few questions to ask," they're always busy filing things, and they don't stop. They continue filing. Like if the FBI showed up at your office, like you're not going to stop and go sit down and talk to them. Nope, I'm too busy. I got to file these files while you talk to me.
Because
that's why I laughed.
Because they don't want stationary heads; they want movement.
Yeah, they want business. You got to do something. You got to have some business.
You have to have some business going on.
Yep. All right, Officer Hoskins.
It was just me, right? Anyway, giving yourself permission to write no matter what, by Emily Brooks and Jon Meyers. I whispered sometimes on the show. Signed, Margie. Thanks for keeping Bob in line. Jon Meyers. Margie, I hope you enjoy. Emily, write better together.
Now you go and scene.
No, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not sure that didn't sound like Bob Saenz.
That's what Officer Hoskins sounded like. Hey, Nat, somebody here to see you.
Here's the two you didn't pick. A trucker in Little Bruno.
I got shot in the face.
Thank goodness you didn't pick that one.
And I was screaming while I was doing it.
A deli manager in The Process.
The Process was a fun little movie. I screamed at people who worked for me.
Well, you did a great job. I will reward you this coveted banana. Remember, it's not the same banana.
You can eat it in private.
All right, thank you. All right, what do we say now? We couldn't have done it without you.